Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of State of Quake. As always, I'm Slip.
And I'm Unkind. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back and let's see where this Slipgate takes us. So first off, we want to give a huge thank you to Tokyo Punch-Out and Mortal Emperor for giving us the official shout out on the Quake community stream. It was awesome to see them recognize, the hard work that we've been putting in over the last month or so, kicking off this podcast.
Yeah, I agree. It really made me so happy to get recognition from our peers in the community, especially from the official Quake guys.
So look out, Tokyo, Mortal. We might be asking you to be a guest on our podcast in the near future.
We'll be reaching out to more folks in the community to be on here. I know some of our fans are really wanting us to talk to the community.
It'll be awesome to go behind the scenes and ask like questions that people don't necessarily get answers to people, like 40 Lines, maybe even Rapha, or any of the other people out there. So if you guys want to request that people be guests on our show, just leave comments below and we'll try to get them on the show.
Yeah, and spam their Twitch channel.
Yeah, that's definitely one way to show the demand for sure. So since our last recording, I feel like it was just yesterday because we recorded less than a week ago to try to make up for lost time. But since our last episode, there have been 2 changes to the public test server, and we want to cover those first just so that we're up to speed. So as of recording this episode, first of all, I want to recognize that there's been an amazing response time from the development team and listening to the feedback from the community and getting that feedback incorporated before the next major patch build. So kudos to them.
Excellent.
It goes to show that they're listening to us, what we like and what we don't like. It's good the development team's doing that.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see the way that they've gone about making these changes in general. So first up, the lightning gun. They tweaked it, and then they tweaked it again. The first tweak, I felt like it was way too powerful, especially with the pushback that they did. But they've gone ahead and over the course of 2 revisions, they've landed on the damage being 6 damage per tick, and then they've increased the rate of fire so that it matched what it was previously. So you won't do as much damage over time, but it still feels the same.
Feels like the current live LG is just 1 less damage.
Yeah. So to go along with that, they've increased the pushback, then they decreased it. So I think it's landed in a good spot overall.
Yeah, same here. I know a lot of people were complaining that, we don't have enough pushback. I can't juggle them in the air, or I can't force the person into a corner. And to me, I could give or take on that, on the pushback part. But overall, I like the LG where it's at. So
same here. It was pretty overpowerful, in the middle while they were still figuring out. There are some videos out there of people getting punished for blindly jumping, especially on Blood Run, jumping for that armor and basically just floating people in the air like it was nothing. So I'm glad that they decreased the pushback, because people who are really strong with lightning gun, they would definitely dominate.
Yeah, I agree. And that kind of makes us into another change they did with the champion stacks. I think they said the light armors felt over buffed and the heavies felt too nerfed.
Yep. They reverted some of the changes for both of those champion categories. The lights now spawn with no armor, but they got nerfed to 75 armor points maximum, but you can still overmax to 100. And the heavies will spawn with 100 armor points. They are now at 125 maxed out, and then you can overmax with a major item to 200.
So a man kills back with that huge stack he carries around.
Yeah, I got to be more careful with picking Athena and Nyx and all of those lights now. They're not going to be as powerful in this next patch. But it's all good. I think it landed in a good spot.
Yeah, I think it's always a constant give or take when they try to make these things as equal as possible or balanced as possible. But the best change they did, in my opinion, is they fixed Ranger a little bit. I know in the last episode I said, "Oh, Ranger's garbage. He's not going to be playable anymore." They increased his orb telefrag from 75 to 100, and I played around with him a little bit. I mean, it's still not as easy as it was before in the live patch right now, but I could definitely tell the difference just from that 25 damage increase they gave him.
Yeah, they hit him pretty hard, so I'm glad that they increased that a bit to go along with that. Nyx's phase shift telefrag is also 100, but I still don't see that happening very often. I honestly think they should keep that as like an insta kill. It is so hard to pull that off. I know people out there are going to disagree with that, but that's much harder to do a telefrag than Ranger's version of it.
I mean, if you know you're playing against a Nyx, if you just constantly move, more than likely, unless they just get very, very lucky, they're not going to phase shift into you.
Yeah, it's a very rare thing. So who else got hit pretty hard that they adjusted? BJ. First off, they adjusted his voiceover line so that like you can actually hear him. So that was a good thing. And then there were people in the community that were like, the meme is dead. The good old So what they did is they replaced his sound with the official voice actor's recording of it, but they also introduced the old version of the scream to put that in there randomly. So you never know which scream you're going to get.
Yeah, that is, I guess I just didn't want to die completely because so many people enjoyed listening to him scream, so I guess I wanted to keep that in there for some people.
I'm glad they added that back for sure.
Another person is Galena got a buff. She got buffed back a little bit because I know they were only doing, was it 25 in the first round, then they bumped up to 50, and then now it's 75 if you have all 3 totems out.
Yep, I'm glad that they did that because it puts more of a focus on her doing damage and not just healing.
Yeah, I see what they were going with, though, with the 25 damage, because they did want her to be more of a team-based champion, but I know a lot of people have been dueling with her lately, so I guess with the 50 damage, they've met in the middle. It's not 100 where it's like overpowered, but it's not 25 where it's so, nobody's going to worry about running into a totem with 25 damage.
Yeah. Like people could just literally run around, go through teleports, and basically not even get punished for it. So I think that landed in a good spot.
Another change they did for the game mode, Slipgate, which I'm glad they fixed this. Players can no longer join in mid-round. I mean, that would irritate me so bad.
Yeah, you're like 2 seconds away from sealing the deal for a match, and somebody spawns in the middle of the game, and you get killed and lose. That's no bueno.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand if they joined like the game, but they had to wait till the round was over to actually play, not just, hey, look, it's got 2 seconds left of the round, but we're going to throw you in there anyway.
Yeah, so now that when they spawn in, they have to spectate until the next round begins. And then also to go along with that, there were a couple of little sound cue bugs that would occur in between rounds. The quad respawn voiceover would sometimes happen. So like
incoming quad.
Yeah, incoming quad. That doesn't happen in between rounds. That was completely inaccurate.
Well,
so they fixed that as well.
I know we talked about it before, but I'm still waiting for the day they just get rid of quad out of Slipgate, period.
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't really belong. So we'll see where that actually lands.
So some more highlights from the community stream besides our great shout out that we got twice that I'm so glad that we got. Eisen was confirmed as the last champ released this year. So
yeah, I was kind of surprised to hear that. It was a little bit of a bummer because they did promise that we would have 5 additional champion when they teased the roadmap, and we only got 4. Unless you pick Peeker as, as part of that. Yeah, I don't consider Peeker a separate champ, but I'll settle for getting Capture the Flag by the end of the year. That's for sure.
Well, that's very possible. They could have just shuffled things around and said, hey, we need to push this out first. Talk about Capture the Flag or Slipgate. Both. Could be both. And they just had to shift things around, and they had to focus on the game modes over that last champ that was supposed to come out this year, which, I mean, either way, I'm happy. Like I said, new content's new content to me.
Yeah, it's a great consolation prize. That's for sure. Another thing that they mentioned, which is really intriguing, is that they said that there would be some sort of a community-wide event again. And some of the things that they teased were involving picking a side to possibly unlock something. So I know during our spoiler alert episode, we hinted at aligning yourself with some sort of faction or a side or an elder god or a realm. That might actually be happening.
Yeah, I hope they just call it dark side versus light side. You know, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so that would be nice. You know, just to have like a Sith Ranger.
Yeah, like an exclusive skin for a particular character that you get to unlock if your side wins. That'd be pretty sweet. The patch will officially drop this next Thursday, November 15th. So look out for that. For all of these changes that people have been talking about in the public test server, they're going to go live soon, within the next week.
Yeah, but make sure, folks, to know that not all of these changes might make it too live. 'Cause, you know, like they've always said as a disclaimer, you know, this is just a PTS build, but I got a feeling the majority of these changes will go to live.
Yeah, pretty much all of them will make it through as is right now.
So I was gonna say, what about last night, sir?
Yeah, last night we decided to run a set of duels versus each other, and as a precursor to what this episode is going to be focused on. And I think it was pretty interesting. It was like the last hurrah for, you know, the damage dealing abilities, but like I decided to stream the matches. So if you guys want to see the result of Slip versus me over the set of like six or seven maps, we did pretty much every single duel map versus each other except for Tempest Shrine. Every time I stream while I duel or play any game mode for that matter, something happened with my netcode. Like I feel like whoever my opponent is, I feel like there's like this half second netcode delay where I'm getting shot before I should be getting shot, and then like half a second after they're done shooting, I'm still getting shot. Like if I run around a corner or if I'm running behind a pillar, I'm still taking damage. And it's not a pleasant experience, and you'll see me complaining the entire time that we're fighting each other.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. You know, I watched his point of view and I could see what he was talking about when we got done. But on my point of view, I'm just sitting here gluing the LG as much as possible.
It's not a pleasant experience. And there were a couple of people in the stream who were who were basically saying that we're like watching fire and ice. We were dueling each other. So shout out to Mothman in the chat for giving us the episode name idea. I would imagine that Slip is fire and ice is is me, catering to our play styles. I think Slip is more of a plus forward player. I would consider myself in the middle, especially when I'm playing Slip. Like he makes me like the way that he fights. I basically have to plus back a little bit because he's pretty good in the mid-range fights. So I've got to hide around corners and peek with rail angles and stuff. I've got to play completely different. Yeah.
That's something everybody has to deal with at one time or another. I mean, you know, you got some people out there who don't play an orthodox way, you know, and it's just you gotta. What am I gonna do with this? Which you're right. You know, I am a plus forward player, and I know I need to work on that. But it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun, regardless of me complaining about the netcode during the stream or whatever. Like, I seriously, I want to run back another set whahout streaming just to see how things go.
Well, you know, I always say it was just too big for you, sir. It was too big for you.
Whatever. Let's talk about what this episode is going to be focused on. A few weeks back, we got our very first episode idea via Twitter, Waldfee. So he requested that we do a focus on duels. So that's what today is going to be focused on. And before we jump into all of this, we just want to put out a disclaimer that everything that we say today is based on our specific experience with duel. Even between us, our opinions and our play styles, we don't align. Like, we have different philosophies on duel. So I don't know if you're going to be in his camp or my camp or somebody else's camp, but we just wanted to say that, we're not professionals at this. We are still striving to be better duelers. We're much better than average people. I'm a diamond. Slip probably can be in that same category in this current build. So we're not, pushovers by any means. We're experienced, but we're not pro players. This episode is going to be, trying to get people who are a little iffy or on the fence about jumping into duel, giving them all the tips and tricks and tools necessary to be a better dueler.
Yeah, I wish we were pros. That would be nice, but duel is one of those formats. It's always a learning process, and you have to be able to. Okay, here's a good example. I'm going to use Bruce Lee. He always says, be water. You always have to go with the flow with duel. You have to learn to adapt in situations. So as my background, I mostly played TDM, freeze tag, and CTF in Q3. So for me, dueling in Quake Champions was my first time getting introduced to duel. So hopefully, some people can take away what we say and apply it and make them better.
Yeah, to make the transition from a team-based game or a game where you're basically trying to get as many kills as possible, duel can be quite the leap for a game type. I myself was primarily a capture the flag player, but as a result of not really having that game mode and loving Quake Champion, currently I've had to lean into becoming a dueler as my competitive game mode. But I think overall, it's made me a better player. And I highly encourage anyone who just wants to get better at the game to learn the ins and outs of duel, because it will improve all of your different game modes over time.
Yeah, and I guess the first thing we should talk about is just the overall duel format for people who've never played it or are curious about it.
Yeah, duel in Quake Champions is much different than traditional duel. So in Quake Champions duel, the players take turns picking 3 champion, play the best of 5 rounds, and each of those rounds lasts 5 minutes.
Yeah, and there's no quad, no protection in this either.
And there's no visual cues as to when the items will respawn. So like if you're playing TDM or free-for-all, you'll see like little overlays on the map or on the items as to when those items will respawn. They don't give that to you in duel, because that's part of duel. Like, knowing when all of that stuff appears and reappears is all part of the game. It's a very deep and complex game mode.
Yeah, this format is not like the old Quake format where it was just, you pick your character, you had no abilities, and you just played until the time limit.
Yeah, the Quake Champions duel, the best way that I can explain it is like, it's like a chess match. There's so many different moves that you can make at the very beginning of a round, in the middle of a round. You can switch up your play style. You can pick different champions. It's so deep, and we're going to get into all of the different complexities of duel later on in this episode. Yeah. You definitely got to take a step back, think about what you're doing, and not just like jump in and infrag people, because you'll most likely lose.
Yeah, before we get deeper into the current duel format, I know a while back we had a Twitter poll that we sent out asking people, do they like the current format of duel, the old format from like Quake 3, or would they like to see a whole new format made? And majority of the people said they wanted a whole new format made. And I know me and you've been discussing some ideas of what it could be. I think me and you both agree on, you start out with the no abilities. You have to wait for your cooldown to start at the beginning of the round.
I think that would completely change how duel is currently played, especially in combination with the damage dealing abilities that have just happened. Putting more of an emphasis on getting those time shards at the beginning of a match, I think would completely change the dynamic of duel. So like, if you start out with no ability and needed to focus on the items and the weapons for the first 15-20 seconds, and there's a scramble at the beginning of a match to get your ability up first, I think that would completely change the dynamic of duel, and it would go a long way.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree on that. And I know if they continue with the PTS patch where, every champion has a unified cooldown time on their ability, I wouldn't mind seeing no time shards in duel. Like, take those off the board and make that another time item, like, heavy and mega. That's just another time you have to keep up with after they use their ability.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good idea to spice up the duel format.
And another idea I had, now this is a whole new completely format. It would be like a mix between old and new. You would have a set time limit and all champions are available. Your entire roster is available. Once you pick your champ, if that champion has been killed, you can't choose them again. So basically, whoever wins is the person who kills the most champs at the end of the time limit, or if you're able to wipe out the other player's entire roster. So you have to go through every single champ in the game if you make it that far or you make it to the time limit.
Yeah, that would be an interesting idea for a new game mode. I don't know if it would necessarily be duel, but that's definitely like a different format for sure. I'd play it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see how it would work. Kind of like I know a lot of people out there want a whole new format, and with Quake Champions, it's either you do it the old way, the new way, or somehow try to combine the two somehow. And I feel like that idea would be the best way to do that.
Yeah, and at this point, like, they're experimenting on the public test server. Why not, pull a few levers and build that type of a game mode?
So, Ed, if you're listening to this, you can take my idea and just give me credit for it. I'll be happy. You can call it the slip game mode.
Yeah, the slip special.
Slip special.
Too big for you.
There you go. You call it that. Too big for you.
All right, so let's jump more into duel. So I think one of the big issues with the current duel format is that it's a 100% ranked or like custom matches. So like it turns a lot of people off because your rank is always associated with, and it just puts that burden of like, oh man, I've got this label on me, or I've got to grind to this particular skill ranking to maintain where I've placed that sort of thing. If they had an unranked duel, I think a whole lot more people would play.
I agree. I think people just put so much stock into their rank. If they never rise above a certain rank, I think it just discourages them and they just give up. They just like, I can't make it past this point, and so they just give up very quickly. Whereas if they would make it maybe a little more casual, people could play it, get more confidence, and if they feel like getting into that rank mode, they can.
Yep, I 100% agree with that. So yeah, to actually get your rank in Quake Champ, you actually have to do 10 placement matches to see where you'll end up. And I think it's really interesting how they sort of calibrate it. I think everyone starts off at a hidden 1500 SR, and based on how well you do along the way, you'll get matched up with people who are, roughly 100 to 150 points above or below you. And at the end of your 10 placement matches, you'll end up at a very specific skill rank. I don't think anyone, even if they win all 10 of their matches, it probably depends on who they faced along the way. I don't think anybody starts off in the elite tier anymore. I think they usually start off as a high diamond, if anything. But just to give you a rundown of what those SR tiers are, at the very top, you've got elite, and then below that, you've got 5 levels of diamond, you've got 5 levels of gold. Below that, you've got 5 levels of silver, and then the very bottom, you've got bronze 1 through 5.
Yeah, I in a way, I kind of wish they would just not start you out at 1500 period. Make people start at the beginning, like literally 0. I think you would see more accurately where you fall, in my opinion, if you started at like a SR rank of 0 and had to work your way up from there. Because I noticed when I did my placements this last go around, I think I won every match except for 2, and I placed gold 5.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, the thing about it is there's also another value that they introduced. It's like a variance, a plus minus. So like if you go to stats.quake.com and you look at your profile, you'll see your level, and then you'll also see a plus minus number that also varies over time. And the way that it works is that's like your calibration That's how accurate the algorithm feels that they've placed you. So the higher that number is, the more points you're going to win or lose per win or loss as you compete. So like if your variance is like 150, if you lose a match, you're more than likely going to drop that amount of point. Whereas if you've got a lower variance, like closer to 30, 40, 50, chances are you're only going to gain or lose like 10 or 15 points for each win or loss.
I know in my experience, I usually lose twice the amount than what I gain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, usually if I lost 30 SR, the next game, if I'd win the next game, I might win 10 or 15.
And that's probably because you don't do ranked duel very often.
Yeah, I'd say that. And I know I've talked to some other people that have the same issues. And I kind of wish they would do a set loss and a set win. Like, I can understand, say, like, if you lost 10, right? And I could understand if you win, you only gain 5 back versus, like, I'm going to lose 30, but I'm only going to give you 5 back, you know, because I know sometimes that happens. I think, in my opinion, it should just be a set across the board. I think that would encourage more people to also duel, you know. Because if you lose 3 in a row, you know from experience you're going to go way down if you lost 3 duels in a row.
But that's the thing. So as you lose, you're probably going to lose the tier that you're currently at and get more accurately placed where you should be. And over time, if you keep on winning at that lower tier, you're going to rank back up to the higher tier over time. So I don't know. I sort of disagree with that. I agree and I disagree at the same time. So like to go along with the amount of points that you lose, don't get comfortable with where you placed, because let's just say you place as a diamond 1, if you don't play for, I believe, a week, you'll start to degrade over time. And if you don't play for a week or 2 and you come back, you lose your ranking. But there's always this hidden behind the scenes ranking. And that variance number that we talked about will increase. So the next match that you play is going to be worth a whole lot more than if you were to play regularly. And there's been quite a few people out there who are not happy with how that works, like people gaming the system, essentially. Mm-hmm. So like getting to a specific rank and basically not playing for a week, getting their variance to be over 100, and then banking on winning again, therefore like jumping astronomically to the next tier the next time they win. And that is kind of BS.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what I said. I think kind of get rid of the variance deal and just make it a flat number across the board. That way, when you see someone with a high rank, you know that person legitimately grinded for that rank versus like what you just said, they found an exploit in the system.
Yeah, I feel like that's how it was previously. So that like they've overcorrected in how that works, and they need to find a middle ground. And I think, you know, over the course of time they'll figure that out. I think it also just has to do with like the amount of players who play the game in general, and then if you compound that with how many people are dueling, it's really difficult to solve that.
Yeah, I think overall, like you said, with time, they'll tweak it. So I would probably suggest everyone out there, you know, don't get too comfortable with the way duels is now. I think in the future it will get changed eventually.
So let's jump into the next part of duel, and that's obviously the champions, because, you know, that's the thing that makes Quake Champions completely different from any of the other previous versions of duel. And that's, you know, we've got these unique active abilities per champion, and passive ability. I think we're going to have a difference of opinion when it comes to, you know, who you should probably start out with, but we want to cater to new duelers. We want to cater to people who are veterans who aren't necessarily duelers, and you might even learn, you know, a thing or two from us just from hearing our opinions. But if you were to say for a new player who wants to get into duel, who are your like top champions that they should focus on?
Okay, top champions. Now I'm basing some of this on current live build, which I know it's not going to last for another about less than a week now. But the first one I will always tell anyone this is Ranger, just because he's an overall good pick regardless of what game mode you're playing him as. You know, his movement's very simple to learn. His passive ability with the rocket jump and then his orb as of now is still great for damage. So, or for, if you would need to move around the map quickly to certain areas, it's good for that.
I
Second,
agree with that.
second, I would say visor. I mean, you can't really go wrong with a guy that wall hacks to find out to find where the opponent is at, and his movement is very similar to Ranger. I think his acceleration is a little bit faster, so he picks up speed a bit quicker. It's basically just like Ranger.
Yep, I also agree with that.
Galena would be my next one. Notice how I said Galena, from previous episode, not Galena. Her movement.
When you start to get into Galena, she's got the basic movement as well, but she starts to introduce a bit more utility with her active ability. So like, I know there's a lot to keep track of in Duel, but like I think that's a very small step if you were to focus on Galena versus, I don't know, someone who has completely different movement like Anarchy or Sorlag.
Yeah, I would never ever tell someone to play Anarchy or Sorlag in Duel to start out
Starting out, yeah.
Yeah, because they're like I said, their movement's a little bit more tricky to get down. Now, I had trouble picking my last fourth champ if I was going to do four. Overall went with Death Knight just because the fact that, like I said, his movement is, like I said, it's the same, very simple, and his active ability, even with it being nerfed, it's still easier to use for newer players than other people that I think as of right now.
Yeah, I think that caters to your play style. Like you typically like to do a high damage per second lineup. For me, like I'm a little bit safer. I tend to be more of a utility player, so I'm going to lean on my favorite champion as the fourth pick, Doomslayer. I think it's the balance between a damage dealing ability, and if you need to use that ability to get away quickly, it's perfect for that. That plus the agility of having a double jump to move across hard to reach places in a map. I think it's a great champion to focus on.
Yeah, just a tip, folks. If you use Doomslayer and you hit a jump pad, don't double jump in mid air once you reach the height of that jump pad, especially if someone's got an LG pointed at you.
Actually, to be honest with you, that I used the double jump to stop in the middle of the air. Like sort of, how if you crouch on a jump pad, you'll just land at the top of it and not go all the way up. Or you could even juke people by triggering the jump pad and not even going all the way up and just basically like going back down to the bottom can trick people.
Yeah, I mean he is good to jump, especially if you're not that great at circle jumping or straight jumping across huge gaps yet. He is a good player to have to get across those gaps, with that double jump for movement.
Yeah. When you're picking champion in general for Duel, obviously you can take our suggestion for these safe to use players, but you're going to get matched up against people who have ventured out and who've been dueling for a while, and you might get someone who picks Nit or who picks Clutch. There are counter pick to players in this game. So some of the highlighted counter picks, the obvious ones that you can pick. So let's just say somebody does pick Nyx. Visor, his ability counters that because he can use his ability to see when she goes invisible, as she does go invisible.
Well, I was going to say also Clutch can do that when he deploys his shield. You can see Nyx's outline. As of live build, if someone does pick a Clutch, the best counter I can think of is Ranger, because Clutch his movement is slow when he has his shield deployed, and he's such a big target. Normally, you can orb into him, or once you get it practice. But as of other champions goes, like if someone picks a BJ, the best counter is probably another BJ in my opinion. Same with Death Knight. Death Knight counter with a Death Knight.
Fire with fire.
Yeah, fire with fire is all I always say.
So yeah, that's just a couple of examples for like champions. Like we could honestly talk like for hours and hours on like who you should focus on, but I think the people that we've suggested are good to focus on if you're just starting out and you want to build your skills in Duel.
Yeah, I agree. And I think once you get to the next level, you'll notice that certain champs are better for certain maps. So, that's a whole nother long topic you could talk about. But, for now, I would just say try to get focused on the basic champs, and then once you get to that next level, then you can start saying, okay, this map, I need to pick this champ.
So next up, we're going to talk about movement, and we're sort of going to gloss over this as well because this can be a very deep subject when talking about Quake Champion. But like, you have no business jumping into duel if you don't know how to move. So I highly suggest at least learning the basics of how to move around the map. Quake is all about the movement and the physics. So if you don't know how to strafe jump or circle jump or rocket jump, you're at a complete disadvantage to dueling. And just in the game in general, you're going to have a significant advantage over who you are competing against if you know how to do those things.
Yeah, basically, if you don't know how to move, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, like I've spectated or watched people on Twitch who I can tell are new to Quake and Quake Champions, and they're basically just walking around the map at a constant speed. It's really predictable, number one. Number two, it's slow. And number three, it's just not Quake. So you need to work on your movement if you're trying to play this game and take it seriously.
Yeah, I agree. So go out and look at some of those videos and learn all this stuff before you start to duel or ask someone to teach you this.
Next up are getting your game settings right. If you've got the game music on or if you got tunes going in the background, turn that stuff off. It's not going to help you in duel because you need to be listening very carefully in this game mode. You got to put your headphones on. You got to know left versus right. And I know the sound design isn't the greatest in this game at this point, but putting your headphones on, it will help over playing with speakers.
Yeah, and make sure to make the game run as smooth as possible. So if you need to, turn down your graphics settings as low as they can. Anything to get that frame rate up to make the game run smooth. Because trust me, if your frames drop, the game it just feels so weird to play, and it will mess you up.
What we've been hearing is that to get a balance between your CPU and your GPU is to basically turn all of your settings to low, except for a few things. And I've heard that anti-aliasing and texture filtering, like those are things that you can bump up to not only make the game look a little bit better, but to increase the load on your graphics card so that everything isn't falling on your CPU.
Yeah, because this game is very CPU heavy from what people have been saying on Reddit, from what I've been reading, and some personal experience too, because my CPU is not the greatest. It really needs an upgrade. I think the next thing we should go over is map and item knowledge, which really, that's pretty much the heart and soul of Duel, is learning the maps and learning item timing.
Yeah, for sure. You should be very comfortable with all of the maps. Like, there's not that many maps to learn in this game overall, but when we say knowing the map, that means knowing where all of the major items spawn, knowing where all of the health bubbles are, where the smaller armors are, the time shards, every single item on the map. You should know how to get to and from those items, because if you don't know where the things are, you're having to search around. It takes time to find that stuff. And if you're wasting time finding stuff, chances are your opponent will know where those items are and they'll punish you for it.
Yeah, so if I had to make one suggestion to anybody, if you are new to the game, like brand new, like just go into customs if you can, if you're able to, and just wander around the map a bit and make mental notes of where all this stuff is at, because it'll make a huge difference once you learn maps.
Yeah, I know it's a tough pill to swallow, like basically just running around the map and just like knowing the overall architecture, but then you start combining it with these items, and then on top of that, the timing of the items. that's where things start to get really out of hand for new players.
Yeah, I think that goes into major item timing. Major items, mega and heavy, mega health and heavy armor, they spawn every 30 seconds. And one tip I could give to someone new that's never timed before is to practice one item. Like, say you spawn near mega or heavy, whichever one, pick it up and just remember that timing on it. And the easiest way I've remembered is if the number is 0 through 9, it'll respond like in the 30-second mark, like 30 through 39. If it's in the ones, like in the teens, it's going to spawn respawn in the 40-second mark. And if it's in the 2s, like the 20s, it'll spawn in the 50-second mark.
And then it goes in reverse, obviously. So if it spawns in the 30s, it goes back to the 0s. The 40s, it goes back to the teens, and the 5 goes back to the 20s.
Yep, and just keep doing that until you get comfortable with that one item. I mean, if you feel like you can time both, by all means do it. But I feel like some people might go in with that mindset of, hey, I need to have both these items and I gotta remember the timing, and I think that might overload you a little bit. So yeah, just try to focus on one item, get comfortable, and then take that second one when you can.
Yep, for sure. And one thing that helps is to say it out loud. I don't know if you have to vocalize it, but just whatever that item timing, that new timing is, say it mentally out loud, physically out loud, do whatever you have to do to remember that. Because if you say it, chances are it'll be in the back of your mind. It'll be top of mind when it does come up.
Yeah, if you want an example, just watch Rapha and the Hang and just listen to them call out timings, because they're constantly.
Second nature to them. They remember that stuff for both items. They probably remember things that we're not even keeping track of. They're just on a whole nother level.
Yeah. Just remember, if you see 40 lions, remember telling them 40 is heavy.
So to go along with those major and minor items, everything else is on a time respawn too. So time shards, those are crucial to the game. Those are also on 30-second timers. It just adds a whole nother level to the game. Just keep it top of mind that those are on 30-second timers.
Yeah, and if you want to keep track of other items like ammo, they're on a 20-second delay, and weapons are on a 5-second delay. So that's also a good way to know where your opponent is at. Like, say you're at the rocket launcher and it's picked up, well, you know within at least the past 5 seconds, he just ran through that. So bear that in mind. And
then another not well-known thing that we sort of just both learned today is that when you do kill your opponent, if they had armor, they'll actually drop 5 armor shards. So like, I originally thought that no matter who you killed, when you killed them, that they dropped armor. That only happens if they had armor to begin with.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I didn't know that if they had no armor at all, that they didn't drop armor. I've just always been used to everyone I kill drops armor, so I never really thought about it.
Yep, and make sure you scoop those up, because that will add to your overstack. And every single piece of health and armor that you can pick up in this game, it matters. Like, it should be like a secondary or primary goal as you're fighting someone to always be collecting every single item that you can. If your health and armor is not at the maximum, you should not be trying to fight someone. That's just my overall advice. Like, plus forward players are gonna have a difference of opinion, but that should be something that, like, it's always like a constant thing that you're rotating around in duel.
Yeah, and another little hint, talking about just the smaller items. If you are full on health and armor, another little thing you can do is hit yourself with a nail gun against a wall or rocket jump, and grab that item, like the small armor or health bubbles. That way you can deny your opponent the item.
That's a great strategy, which is a great segue into our next topic area. And that's just like highlighting a few well-known and unknown strategies, like just across the board with duel, because you definitely don't want to play predictable. You don't want to play vanilla duel. Like, you don't want to do the same things over and over. You want to switch it up a bit to try to get the upper hand on your opponent. There's plenty of people, pro players, who have completely different play styles. If I were to categorize 3 different unique types of play styles, obviously, you've got the plus forward play style, which is probably going to be more aligned with a player like Claus. And then you've got the plus back play style. And he's this player, by the way, can probably play any play style and adapt to anyone. But he's probably most known for playing plus back is Rapha. And he's the greatest. So he's a great he's a great figure in the community to model yourself after if you want to get to that level of play. And then there's also non-traditional play and sometimes slip falls into this category. There's one of the most noteworthy players out there that I feel falls into this category because he picks non-traditional characters. He does things off of spawn that no one else would dare ever do. Is OD.
Yeah, I agree with all those. Yeah, OD, he is very unique when it comes to that. You know, he tries to play the non-meta, which can definitely throw a lot of people off.
I'm curious to see how his playstyle survives in this next patch because he was really heavy with using the abilities right off of the spawn to try to get the upper hand or throw his opponent off. But I think overall, as a player, when you're trying to figure out how to best duel, pick a playstyle, focus on that playstyle, and ultimately, like if it doesn't work for you, pick another playstyle. You got to find what suits you and what your strengths are.
Yeah, and I think you should always, as a duel, it's always changing as far as, you know, learning and what you can add to your arsenal. So don't always try to stay in the same, I guess, like don't ever try to get into a rut with duel. Always be willing to try something new to see if it makes you better. And if it, you know, if it doesn't, you know, don't do it anymore. And if it does, you know, practice on it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So the next strategy that we want to get into is when you do the duel dance, as we say it, there's usually a script that happens at the beginning of the match. And let's just say everything is going according to plan. Let's role play here. We're playing on Blood Covenant, and let's just say you spawn at the pillars just below the jump pad. The jump pad, at the top of the jump pad, you have the mega health. There's also a light green armor there, and then right around the corner, there's the lightning gun. The thing that we want to highlight in that scenario is prioritizing what you should grab first. Obviously, you don't want to ignore all three of those things and get the rocket launcher because that's your favorite weapon. The thing that I would do is the first thing on my shopping list is to grab that light armor. I know that my opponent is not going to get to the mega health before me because they've likely spawned towards the heavy armor or on top of the bridge or in that hallway. So the next thing on my list is to grab the lightning gun because you want to have a weapon that's viable to fight your opponent with. And then just so that my opponent does not know the exact timing of the mega health, I'll wait a couple of seconds just to add, you know, a little bit of a delay on that. But that next item that I'm grabbing is that mega health. And from there, that's where the script can completely change. I could run and try to grab the rail because that's a rail heavy map. Or I can grab the tri-bolt, go up the jump pad, grab the tri-bolt and the rocket launcher and take that route. It's all going to really depend on which champion I'm playing and who my opponent has actually picked. What are your thoughts on priority of the items?
I always want to try to grab a weapon first, depending on where I spawn, if I can, but that's just because I don't want to get caught in a fight without, you know, having something that's going to deal some damage, because for me, the starting weapons, they're okay, but, you know, more than likely you're not going to win a fight with them. So, like in that scenario, I'd probably do exactly what you did, grab the light armor LG, then go to Mega. If I had to skip any of that, just in my opinion, it'd be the small armor. I would hurry up and grab LG, run back and grab Mega, because there are some people that may skip their item and try to get the jump on you because you're not expecting it. So it really depends on, like you said, who are you playing against? Like if you know this person's like very aggressive, they like to get the jump on you, then you need to go in, just hurry up, grab a weapon and go grab your item real quick. It's like with duel, everything's very situational. So that's the really key about duel. You need to know what situation you're in, and you need to know what to do.
Yeah, and once you've done those things and, you know, you basically want to keep on shopping. Your player is like your shopping cart. And the more things that you have in your shopping cart, the better off you're going to be in a fight. But like overall, with my play style, I'm going to say I want the Trinity items, the Trinity weapon. I want that major item. I want to be fully stacked before I commit to a fight with someone. I want to have all of those things before I even have any business full on attacking someone. Other players are going to have a difference of opinion based on their play style, but that's like the basics.
Yeah, I think my play style been a little different. Like you can attest to this. My first thing is I want the LG bad. Give me that
And
LG.
that's a good thing. Is like to counter Slip's playstyle. One thing that I can do as a strategy is basically guard against that weapon. Literally deny him that area with whatever weapons that I have. Like keep on picking that item up, grabbing another item, and basically spamming that area so that he cannot get that upper hand with that weapon that he's so great at.
Oh, that or trying to keep me at a distance with the rail gun. I mean, I'm okay with the rail. I'm not the best by any means, but I'm not the worst either. I got like an average around mid 30s, sometimes in the upper 40%. So for me, I want the LG and Rocket because, like he said before, I really like the mid-range fights or closer range fights. But by no means, if I see you at a distance, I'm going to pop you with the rail if I can.
There's always a counter to something in this game. That's what's so beautiful about it. So to go along with like this whole shopping list thing is like as a beginner dueler, you know the map, you know where everything is, you've got a basic grasp on the timing. You basically want to find a route, a thing that you can do to repeat over and over. Hopefully it's not like a predictable thing, try to switch it up here or there, but you basically want to run around the map. You don't want to stand in one spot, and you always want to be collecting weapons and armor as you need it, and basically engaging in fights when you feel equipped to handle one. If you run into a player who wants to engage with you and you're not ready, don't feel like you need to take that fight. One thing that I would suggest 100% is do not turn your back on an opponent, even if you're running away. You can run backwards in this game. you can run away and at the same time shoot a rocket behind you or shoot the nail gun behind you. Cover your trail. Like, don't just blindly run away because you're gonna get melted.
Oh yeah, I agree. If you watch a lot of the people on Twitch, you'll see like what a route looks like for the most part. You'll see what they do. And then I know some people, like once they get comfortable, they may run, like we'll go back to Blood Covenant, for example. They may just hold that top bridge area. Like they might keep going back from the bridge above armor, and they'll go all the way back to teleporter, and they'll just keep running that one line constantly because they're watching both items, and they also can deny at least one of the major weapons, the rocket launcher.
Yep, that's a great spot to camp up on top of. But then at the same time, the other player, they can own that bottom area, and depending on the sound cues or whatever, there's definitely a way to combat that. But I would say for sure the person who owns that higher ground on that particular map is the king.
Well, it's just like with my favorite map, and in my opinion, it's the best map in the whole game, Vale of Nath, or Pnath, as I like to call it. It's the same way. If you can hold that top section, you're gonna more than likely win that map. More than likely, because it's just so easy to run the items because it's such a smaller map. And I think people really hate on that map, but if you ever watch a lot of the pros play, that map comes up quite a bit.
Yeah, I'm warming up to that map. Let's just say, like, the more that I've focused on it, I can see why it's picked so often. But it's not a beginner map.
Oh no!
But if you do want to focus on a map that not many people, especially at the beginner level, like to play, keep that in your back pocket, because you get to, when you're competing against somebody, whether it's a ranked duel or in competition, more than likely, like, you're going to be able to put your vote in to pick that map, and you'll have an upper hand.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why the pros pick it, because I think even a lot of pros don't like playing it, so it's just like a trump card to them. It's like, oh, I'm going to pick this map and force them to play a map they don't like. Like, look at Rapha, that guy dominates on that map.
Yep, he's got that on lock. And once you get into the groove, controlling the major items on a map and basically just keeping the time to yourself, and your opponent will have no idea what the item timing is. They'll only be at their maximum stack. They won't be overstacked the entire time. And especially if you're up a champion during the actual round, chances are you're going to win that map because time is against your opponent.
Yeah, they have to play more aggressively to try to tie that game up. So if you are ahead, like you said, by one champ or even two champs too, I mean, just try to slow it down a little bit because, like you said, make the other opponent sweat. You know, make him make the first move. You know, you just kind of aim back and relax a bit.
And literally, you will feel more relaxed if you have control over the map. I feel like even if you are a plus forward player, it smooths things out so much rather than being on the run, trying to figure out what the timing is, trying to do damage to someone else against the clock. It's just it's a rewarding way to play the game.
Yeah, another good tip that you could do is, I guess, if you were more of a non-plus forward, like maybe plus back, or even some non-traditional players, is to go silent. You know, just walk the map, don't run, and listen for your opponent, and then that's a good way to start setting up traps, especially on on heavy items. You don't have to necessarily grab that mega or that heavy. You could just leave it there and then punish your opponent for picking it up if they do pick it up.
Yep. One great example, and this is like a counter to a champion like BJ specifically, is if you go silent and you're walking or crouching around the map as you move, and you hide around a corner that you know BJ is coming around with your rocket launcher, and you're basically trying to prevent him from popping his dual wield ability, chances are you're going to catch him off guard, surprise him, pop him up into the air, and win that fight. So going silent and setting traps, like I'm incorporating more and more and more of that into the way that I duel, and it's been so rewarding.
Yeah, that's an issue I have. I need to start slowing it down a little bit. I just got a gun in my head and my hands, and I got to shoot somebody with it. That's how I feel right now.
And yeah, to go along with like the more strategic style of play, once you get really good at aiming with the railgun, like there are these angles in the game where like you can see your opponent, but like they can't see you. And if they're in an area that's predictable, find what those angles are. Get your railgun zoomed in to get that rail chip damage before you actually go in for the actual kill.
Yeah, like Blood Covenant. Oh my God, the rail angles are just everywhere. It's like there's very few spots on that map that you're not railable. I mean,
yeah.
It's if there was one map I would tell someone not to probably practice on at first, in my opinion, like this is just my opinion, is Blood Covenant until you get more comfortable. Because like I said, that the rail angles on that map, if you play against somebody that knows what they're doing, you're just going to get railed to death, and it will frustrate you. This is speaking from experience.
Yeah, someone can play the distance game on you if they're great with the rail gun and the rail angle, and you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah, you're going to have a bad time. So at the same time, though, you still got to practice the angles yourself, too.
Yep. Got to know what those are, know what to avoid.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why I like PNAS so much, because the rail is still there, so you can rail them if you want. But with it being such a tight corridor map, there's angles there, but not nearly as many to worry about. So if you're more of a player like I am, being more of plus forward or non-traditional, you're not having to worry as much in the back of your mind of, okay, what angle can he hit me at from this where I'm at. Whereas Blood Covenant, it's always on your mind, always.
Next up, we've got delaying the items. So to go along with not being predictable on any particular map, you don't have to grab the item the second that it respawns, because chances are both of the items are initially going to be on that same 30-second interval. What you'll want to do over the course of a round or a match or whatever is to get, if you know that your opponent has picked up their major item exactly at 30 seconds, and chances are they're going to try to make their way towards the other major item, it will roughly take, I would say, between 10 and 12 seconds to get to the other item, depending on the map that you're on. You'll want to delay that item time. So don't pick it up exactly when your opponent has picked it up so that you can potentially kill them in between the next item spawn time and get both items next time around.
Yeah, that's I know a lot of pro players do this strategy. They delay it for that purpose. I know I have a hard time doing it. I'm just so used to grabbing it and just go with it. But yeah, delaying items is something I think everybody should practice. That way, like you said, you'll have time to go grab the other item and then come back and grab yours because of that item delay. And then your opponent, for them, they're going to have to sit there and learn. Okay, well, what's the time and delay on these two items now? So it's just a whole other factor for them to have to deal with.
We've already, yeah. So that's delaying the items. To go along with that, we already touched on denying your opponent a weapon, especially on maps that are heavy on that particular item. One particular strategy on Blood Covenant is to deny that rail or deny LG. If they don't have that railgun and you've got the rocket launcher and you own that area, chances are they're not going to be able to punish you for it. So denying weapons on particular maps, that's a great strategy.
And it kind of leads into what we talked about, surprising your enemy. When we talked about prioritizing what to grab, if you are very confident in your style, you can rush your opponent, just skip your item altogether and just rush in there and punish them because they're not expecting it. And you might get a quick first frag off your opponent, and that'll throw their whole it might throw their whole entire game off for the rest. They're on the back pedal now because they weren't expecting it.
And you don't necessarily have to try to kill them, but like all that chip damage at the beginning of a round will also do the same thing, has the same effect of surprising your enemy. And I hate to keep on using Blood Covenant as the example, but I mentioned in the last episode that we had, I went up against XBio and he surprised the hell out of me when he spawned near the nail gun, and I spawned in the hallway in between the green armor and the lightning gun. I actually pulled this off on Slip last night. You can see it on the stream. I did the same thing and basically grabbed the nail gun, ran straight for that hallway, and started pre-firing the nail gun because the most predictable thing that he could do on that map is to grab the lightning gun and go up the jump pad with his back turned on me, and I actually did quite a bit of damage initially on that. I was probably one nail away from killing him off the spawn, but I had to double back so that he wouldn't get the other major item so I can get that in time. But I'm sure that threw his game off. it was worth it. So taking risks like that when you can, it's also a great strategy.
Yeah, and another thing to kind of go along with that is if you play like that, you can throw them off to the point to where maybe your opponent, gets out of their groove, and kind of like last night, how I plus forward a lot, and Unkind's not used to that play style. He kept having to tell himself, "Don't play like Slip. Don't play like Slip." And that'll work. Sometimes that works. If you can get into your opponent's head and make them change, they might make some mistakes.
Yeah, I fall into that trap quite a bit. is catering to my opponent's play style. I need to stick to my gun more often. That's for sure.
Another thing you can do that you might see a lot of pros do. Well, actually, about every pro does that I know of. They spam corners all the time. Like you'll see them either spamming nail gun or rockets, or maybe especially Tribal. Like if you're playing Blood Run, oh my God. Tribal is just spammed constantly on that map, constantly.
Yeah, it gives them information. It not only covers the area that they're in. Somebody's not going to go through a hallway that has potentially 120 damage every single time you peek around a corner.
Yeah, I think it's a trade-off. You get information if you do hit someone. If you just happen to hit them when you're spamming, but also at the same time, you're giving your enemy sound cues of where you're at. So it's one of those, it's kind of a trade-off situation deal.
Yep. So beware of all of the sound cues in general that you're giving off. The one thing that you definitely don't want to do is don't have a weapon out that has an idle sound. So like the railgun and the lightning gun, your opponent can hear that. So if you're trying to sneak around the map, don't have those two guns out because chances are they'll hear you sneaking up on them.
Yeah, I have a bad habit of keeping my LG out because I'm just ready to, run around a corner and melt someone's face off.
Yeah, I can tell. Like last night, especially when you play with BJ, you always have that lightning gun out, and I'm like, you know what? I can hear this guy. Plus, I got visor. I'm about to punish him, and more often than not, I will. If my netcode is playing nice with me, I'll punish him for it.
Sometimes, but then there are other times that you get melted.
It's unfortunate, but it is what it is.
Speaking of LG, though, for me, this kind of goes into it. Don't forget to watch your ammo because if you're like me and you're LG happy or rocket happy, you only get I think 100 LG ammo when you pick up the weapon, and you get 10 rockets. So always be mindful of that, especially if those are your main weapons. And so if you know you're getting low, go find ammo or go pick up another rocket or another LG.
Yeah, I can't count how many times that I've won a fight against you because you've either spammed all your rockets before the fight or I'm running away from you as you're dual wielding with BJ and click, you run out of ammo and that's my time. I'm going in for the kill.
Yeah, that happened once or twice last night where I would run out of ammo. I'm like, he got lucky. I was out of ammo or out of gun. Now, if Quake ever decides to do instant weapon switches, where like as soon as I hit that button, I get weapon, boy, there's gonna be a lot of people in trouble.
That is never gonna happen.
Because there was a few times.
You are dreaming, sir, if you think that that's gonna happen.
You never know. They might change it. That's another don't forget, or well, it's like a don't forget and then what not to do. Don't switch your weapons in the middle of a fight because I've died so many times during a weapon switch. It's not even funny.
Yeah, don't switch to a railgun when you're close up to your opponent because it is extremely hard to hit somebody with the railgun. Like that might be the only gun that you have, but it's not worth the risk if you've got like the starting shotgun or the machine gun instead for a closer fight.
Yeah, don't accidentally do that too because I did that last night because I could have won that fight, but my thumb hit my railgun. I got my railgun on the mouse. I'm like, oh god.
Oops.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
Too big for you.
Uh-huh. And I think, remain humble and show good sportsmanship. That goes a long way in this game, I think.
Yep, 100%. Duel it's a very, I want to say, I don't want to like use the wrong term, but like to me, I feel like duel is like an intimate thing. Like it's something that happens between you and someone else. So like, there's people who exploit it all the time. Like there's toxic people in the community who trash talk before the match, during the match, after the match. Don't be that person. Like we want to be the awesome community that we are. And at the start of each match, wish your opponent well. Say good luck, have fun, God bless, whatever you want to do to like kick things off. If you've had a good round, say good round in between the rounds. If somebody got like an excellent shot, it's like, man, nice shot. And most importantly, at the end of each match, you got to put the GG out there. Like, I don't care if you lost and it was a hard loss, you still got to say good game. It's just part of what's been passed down since the beginning of Duel.
Yeah, I've always said GG no matter what. And I've had a lot of people like rage quit on me or, just talk a bunch of trash because at the time I'd be like using the meta champions and it's like, hey, you had the same opportunity as me to pick these champions and you didn't and you lost. But yeah, you're going to be toxic about it and just talk a bunch of junk like, oh, nice meta champs or nice meta play or something like that. It's all part of the game. You learn from it and you move on. So there's no point in being salty about it. Always be good to your fellow player.
100%. And to go along with that, you've got to have a short memory when it comes to Duel. Even if it's like down to in between champions, you need to lose the memory that you had before that fight. Because if you tilt, chances are you're going to try to kill your opponent, refrag your opponent when you shouldn't be, and you're going to lose. Don't carry that momentum into your next champion, into your next round, into your next opponent, even into like the next week or day. Like you should have a short memory when it comes to this stuff.
If you're going to tilt, you're going to have a bad time.
I mean, yeah, tilting in general, just like with anything, it just don't do it.
I might tilt unkind a lot sometimes when we do.
I gotta get better at it. I honestly think last night's situation in particular, I was tilting because of the netcode. Things were happening that really shouldn't and typically don't happen when I duel. I had to calm myself down. I needed to talk myself out of getting into his way of playing and complaining about some of the technical issues that I was having. I fell out of my groove. You gotta not fall out of your groove. Play your game.
And that goes to another thing. I know that's something we didn't really add to our outline here, but I wanted to make a point of it. If you queue in high ping servers and say you lose and you're the high pinger, don't complain. You chose that, because I know we played the other night, or was it last night? We played some like a pub TDM, and the guy was like pinging 120, and he was talking about like server lag or something like that. I'm like, well, you chose the server, so why are you complaining?
Yeah, exactly. Like you have no business complaining after a loss or saying that you won purely based on ping if you're a European player playing on US servers or vice versa.
And I have to say, in my experience, when it comes to duel, the person who has the higher ping usually has the advantage.
Yep.
So in a way, I kind of wish they would, like for ranked duels, you could like lock it down. Like you can't ping over this amount on a server, or you can't be connected to that server, because I have lost. I know you have too. I've lost quite a few matches because I'm pinging against somebody like with 120 plus ping, and I can't hit them. Like my rockets do no damage, my rail gun's way off. The LG's the only thing I got, and I mean, I can still do some damage with it, but I mean, without rocket and rail, you're playing at a disadvantage.
Yeah, and the way that the client side hit detection works, like it honestly favors the person with the higher ping. They're probably, if they're pinging close to 50 to 70 points above you, that's half a second to 3/4 of a second of a lead time that they have on their end. And since the client side is responsible for telling the server if something hit or not, you're going to experience things that are not favorable, not desirable. And I don't know, just stick to your own your own turf, people. Like I understand that you might be playing at a time of day where there's not a lot of people and you're trying to increase the amount of, or decrease the amount of time that you are waiting, but it's not cool.
It's like, you don't want it to happen to you, so don't do it to another player.
Yep.
And I think that leads into, when we go back to our movement, our little movement section we talked about, Frothy Omen. I think a lot of people in the community, pretty much everybody in the community probably knows who he is. He has really great YouTube tutorials on basics, and I would highly, highly suggest go to watch those. He even breaks down champions too. He even helps you talk about individual champions. So if there's a champ that you're not that great at, go watch him, and he might give you some tips on how to play it better.
Yep, I 100% agree. He's probably got the most watched, the best organized ways to learn how to play this game, for sure.
Once you watch him and you get the basics down, go to watch the pros next, because that's going to be the next level. You need to see what they're doing, like Rapha, Dehang, Effortless Civ, Toxic Claws. They all have different play styles, and they all play different champions. So, I mean, there's a lot you can learn through watching these guys.
And many of them are even gracious enough to answer questions as they're streaming, after they stream. I know Rapha, after every single stream that he does, he stops playing and he basically answers questions from his audience inside of the chat for a given amount of time.
I was speaking of Rapha, though. I just thought of this. One of the first question I ever asked Rapha, and if he ever listens to our podcast, I hope he remembers this, or he might. I don't know if he will or not. The very first question I asked, and this was back when I first started to get the duel, and I was getting very, very frustrated. I said, Rapha, has Quake ever made you so mad do you want to punch someone in the face? And I was so happy that he actually answered that question. He's like, Quake has made me. He's like, yeah, Quake has made me mad before in the past, because I think for a lot of players, Quake. Now he didn't say this exactly, but this is how I took it. Quake is a love-hate game, I think, with a lot of people. Even with the pros, sometimes they love it, sometimes they hate it. It's just back and forth. But basically, he's never wanted to punch someone in the face. But I just thought it was
And
really funny that I asked that question and he actually did answer it.
So Rapha, fun fact is that he's actually from Chicago, where I currently live, and I asked him another just random similar question during the stream, and one thing you'll know about Chicago is that if you're a local, everyone has their preferred pizza place. So I asked him, I was like, all right, in Chicago, what's your go-to pizza place? And he actually surprised me with his answer. He picked something that wasn't like on the list of typical places like Giordano's or Lou Malnati's or whatever. But for me, just for the record, I'm born and raised in Chicago. I know that the most commonplace people actually like to go is Giordano's. I highly recommend it. But if you want to go off the beaten path and experience something that is Chicago style pizza, Pequod's is the way to go.
You know, I've always loved Chicago style pizza. Like down here in North Carolina, we don't have that very many options. Like as far as that goes, because for us, Chicago style pizza down here is just a thicker pizza, and that's about it. Now I know up there they do a thing called. I know some places do a thing called pizza pies.
Yeah, stuffed.
It's like when I watched it, it was like you put a layer of dough in your pan, and then you put your toppings in it, and then I saw they put another layer of dough on top of that, and then they actually put the sauce on top of that very top layer, and then they cook it like that.
Yep. That's what Giordano's is famous for.
Yes, I've never had that like style before. Which when I did work at Village Inn when I was in high school, I did make a pizza that way, and it turned out fantastic. So if I ever go to Chicago, I definitely want to try that because it looks delicious, and pizza is my favorite food.
Well, I know where I'm taking you when you finally make your way over here.
We're going to have to, and we'll do a live podcast about it.
Hell yeah!
Talk about pizza, the state of pizza.
Yep. Let's do it. Let's make it happen.
We'll plan it out. We'll try to do it. And I know if we both go to QuakeCon, you know, we'll have to try out some Texas cuisines
for sure.
Oh.
All right, let's get back to this. We still got a lot to cover here. This is going to end up being a pretty long episode, but I think it's going to be worth it for our audience. So bear with us. What's next here? Let's I think this is like a given thing. Beyond watching pros on Twitch, I would also encourage you, just because we don't live in the days of Quake Live and Quake 3 where you can sit on a server and basically develop a relationship with people and spectate and chat. Like, so you've got to get with the times and join up on Discord. There are a number of Discord channels out there that are great resources, not only to find players to play up against when you don't want to play ranked duel and you want to just do some custom scrim, but there are plenty of people out there who are more than willing to teach you if you're a beginner at the game or whatever level that you're at.
Yeah, for example, our Discord, our Discord continues to grow. It seems like almost every day we might have another player or two that joins. I think when we started this podcast, I want to say we had like maybe 15 people in our Discord, maybe. I think we're over 60 people now.
And it's going to continue to grow.
So if you haven't joined our Discord, go ahead and get in here. More than likely somebody's on that'll play. Just ask around. Ask me or Unkind. We're usually on if we're not working. So
yeah, I always include a link to our Discord in the podcast description. So hopefully, if you're on a computer, if you're listening, just click on that link and you can join our community.
I guess that leads into our next section we want to talk about is, once you have the basics, once you're getting some knowledge about the maps, weapons, etc., where do you go from there? And that's just kind of how to improve yourself. One of the best and oldest ways that I know of is record yourself and rewatch your session, because you can go back and like watch yourself in the situation, because it's easier to have that hindsight ability and say, okay, I didn't need to do that, or I needed to do this. So that's the best way to me to learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I can attest to that. Like, I started recording some of the sessions that I did at the very beginning of my dual focus, I guess you could say, and I watched it. I'm like, why did I play like that? Like. And it is also interesting just to see that the changes that happen over the course of time in this game. So I 100% agree. Find a way to record, whether it's like if you need to stream on Twitch and watch the videos on demand, or if your video card supports direct recording. But it is 100% a great way to watch your sessions back. And if you can't record, via a program or via your hardware, another way to get feedback is to start custom matches with multiple people and have them spectate you and give you feedback like on the fly. I know we've done that in the past.
Yeah, we have, and some people listen to what we say, and some people say, "Oh, well, I'm not doing that."
Yeah, they're not around anymore. They didn't improve, and it just goes to show you how much they wanted to put into this game.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to, I think it was our second episode when we talked about just overall new people coming to Quake. If a better person is giving you advice, take it. Don't just ignore it. I know some people don't like to be criticized, and I think that's just something you're going to have to get over to become a better player. So, I mean, even me, I always, if someone says, "Hey man, you need to do this or you need to try this," I'll take it to heart and try to practice on that.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, any of the constructive criticism that I've received, whether it's like directly from custom matches against my opponent, saying that like, "Hey, that time that you were Galena and I had a tough time dealing with that," take every single little piece of advice to heart and work on it, build on it, and you will become an amazing player in the end.
Yeah, I mean, and that even comes to our podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, hey, if you feel like we need to change something, let us know. I might not do it because this is our podcast. No, I'm just kidding. But hey, we'd always like to have feedback from you guys, whether if it's just a suggestion or you just want to say, hey, man, keep up the good work. Either way, we love hearing it.
100%. Keep it up, guys.
And that kind of leads us to the next thing we want to talk about. I think this is more when you're kind of getting into competing, because you want to prepare for that. And I think don't go in cold. Is warm up. Try to find someone that's very similar to you in skill level, that's going to push you, but not like just dominate you to the frustration level. But they're going to push you to the point to where you're on your guard. And that's a good way to warm up before a good match.
Yeah, and if you can't find somebody who's at your skill level, try to find somebody who's slightly above. I don't know, at the last resort, like try to play against bots who aren't going to play like a human, or, somebody who is way below your skill level.
Don't fully warm up on bots. The only time I've ever warmed up with bots, and I used to do this back in Quake 3 as well, is I would do an insta-gib, and I would put bots in there, but that was mostly just to warm up the aim part. I could still kind of do flick rails or something like that with bots, but don't solely rely on that. That's just a little old trick I used to do just to try to get my rail accuracy up a little bit, just pretty much getting the wrist warmed up, basically.
Yeah. Although I do think with Quake Champions, there's something different about Instagib. I think the hitboxes are bigger because I hit way more rails in Instagib than I do in a normal match. So don't get too comfortable with that.
Yeah, developers, let us know if that's true or not, because I don't know if that's the case, or is it I just have such confidence in that one-shot rail that I'm hitting my rails higher, because usually I'm hitting about 10 to 15% higher in an insta-gib than I do in a normal match. So if you're watching this, let us know.
One of the things that I like to do, whether it's while I'm playing ranked duel or if I'm in a competition, research your opponents. The Quake developers have been ever so gracious to give us a stats site. So go to stats.quake.com and you're able to not only look up your stats, but you can research your opponent ahead of time. I've gone as far as before a ranked match to, as soon as I get matched up with someone, is to type their name in. I hit Alt Tab and I go over to my browser, type in their name, see what their highest played champions, what their weapon accuracies are, all in that little 15 to 20 second time before we actually vote on a map. And it's definitely put me in the right mindset before a match. I don't know if you've ever done that before.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, especially like when I competed in QOL, The few times that I did, I would like look up who's in my group and look up and kind of say, okay, well that's where this guy's at, or this is where this guy's at. And it kind of gives me like an outline of, okay, how is my group stage going to go? And well, for me, it never really went that well because when I was dueling, I think this was before they reformatted the rank system. I was like in the middle silvers, like silver 3, 4, sometimes 5, depending, and
Yep.
I was going against diamond ones or Diamond 2, so I was just like, oh god.
Yeah, you gotta watch out for that.
But yeah, it's all. But even then, just still don't get discouraged because I mean, speaking of experience, I got discouraged and I didn't have a good time. So don't do what I did. Just because you might be going in against someone that's really good. Go in with an open mind and learn from what this is going to do for you, like what this match will do for you.
And yeah, the more you know about your opponent, the better equipped you're going to be. Even if you know what they're going to do, it'll put you on in a better mindset overall. Like Slip said, to be prepared for that match.
And I think the number one thing you can also do is breathe, especially right before, right at the beginning of the match. That adrenaline is going to start pumping, especially if you're not used to being in a competition, or like if you're in King of the Hill and you're not used to having your match casted or whatever. You're going to get nervous and your adrenaline's going to start pumping. You just got to calm down.
Yeah, I suffer from that quite a bit. When I'm playing a ranked duel or custom, I'm calm as a cucumber. But as soon as I'm in a competition, for some reason, I start to get nervous and adrenaline pumps through me and I'm shaky, especially, during that first encounter. And it's really tough to shake. I suffer from that all the time. And somebody told me to just breathe, just take deep breaths, and you should work through it. And it's helped quite a bit.
I think the biggest thing though, don't get discouraged if you're getting frustrated or if you have the nerves or whatever, because it happens to the best of us. I mean, I don't care who you are. I'm sure even pros, if you ever watch them compete like on PGL or QuakeCon or whatever, you can see some frustration in their face sometimes, depending on what happens. So, just shrug it off and, keep playing because, I think with Quake, it happens to everyone. I have not met anyone that can just say, I've not gotten mad ever. I've not gotten nervous ever. I've never met anyone yet.
Just imagine how they feel. They're literally on stage, like in front of people performing at times. So like kudos to the pro players because I don't even know how I would deal with my emotion.
Nah, if I was on stage, going back to my old classic FPS Doug, if I know a lot of you guys probably out there know who that is, I'm grabbing that keyboard and I'm just starting to sound on the ground, start stomping on it, and I'm walking off stage. So Quake is an emotional game, I think, is just overall message. So roll with the punches, I guess, is the best way to put it. We talked about competing, so now we need to tell you where you can compete, where you can improve your skills. The monthly thing we've always mentioned, I think the past couple podcasts, is Quake Open League. You can go to quakeopenleague.com. It shows you all the information you need to know. If you haven't done it before, I think they start you out in, I don't know, was it 4 or 5 group stages? I know they've changed it a little bit since I've played, but
once you sign up and you filled out all the forms or whatever, depending on where you live and your current rank, they'll put you in one of 4 categories. They've got the elite group, which is pretty much all of the elite players, both for North America and for Europe. And then for everyone else, basically the challenger group, you'll get assigned to one of those groups randomly. And basically over the course of 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how big the pool of players are, you'll play everyone in your pool at least once. And then if you do well enough, the top 4 players in each group will move on to the playoffs. And if you make it to the finals of the playoffs, you'll actually win prize money. So there's usually a prize money pool of like $2,200 or something like that for each. So if you get good enough, whether you're an elite player or if you're just a challenger, you'll actually win something.
If you want to kind of go into more of a casual deal, King of the Hill is something you can do. They usually have this every Friday. I know sometimes, if something comes up with, I think because Jahar is the one who hosts it, sometimes if something comes up with him, he might not do it, but it's usually every Friday. I know they have a Twitch channel, Tasty Spleen TV. They got a Discord channel. It's kind of it's like an arcade style, you could say. If you win the round, you move on. If you lose, well, you kind of get dropped out. And they do the order determined by your duel rank to try to make it competitive.
Yeah, I've been doing King of the Hill probably over a year. And before they had the dual ranking system, it was kind of rough because they basically took your past performance and their memory of your past performance as were an indicator of where you should start on King of the Hill. But now that we actually have an official ranking system, if there happen to be silver players in there or unranked players, they'll tend to play first. And then as the night goes on, your opponent is basically somebody that you'll be punching above your weight, so to speak, against. So like if you play someone and you beat them, chances are the next person that you fight is going to be even tougher. And there's been quite a few people who have started off pretty low and they've won 3 or 4 matches, but things will start to level out and your talent pool is going to get tougher and tougher as the night goes on. That plus just the fact that the stamina that goes along with playing that many matches in a row, it's not likely that if you're starting towards the bottom that you'll end up as the king. But what they do at the end of the night is if you've won at the end of the night, you'll get your name up on the wall. So like there's like a wall of kings, so to speak. And there's people who have won close to like 10, 12 times, like players like Dramas, Sib, that have been king of the hill plenty of times. That is a fun time, though.
Yeah, it's fun. I have always kind of wondered why some of the guys like do it repeatedly. It's like, come on, let somebody else get their name up there. Come on, let somebody else have a turn. I kind of the past few I've played, I think there's only been one time I've lost my very first round. The rest of the time I've either won at least one round or two. I think the very last time I played Koth, I did a hat trick on, I forget what the guy's name was, something Monday, Bad Monday, something like that. I can't remember. And I orbed him 3 times. All 3 of his champs, I finished them off with the orb. And Jahar and OD was just like, really? Really? This guy's getting away with this? So those days are over.
Yep.
I'll miss them fondly. But yeah, I highly do recommend Tasty Spleen's Koth. It's something, you're just going in, have fun. That's all it is. There's nothing to worry about.
Only thing you got to worry about is the commentary from
commentary. Well, I will say, for the most part, Jahar and OD are very forgiving on certain mistakes, especially if you're a lower ranked player. And I know OD he has even said, like, when he watches a lower ranked person play, he's just like, well, this is just usually what your lower tier player plays like. They're still learning. So, but they have their moments, and I'm sure they've given me some flack for some things, and it's all good. It's all in fun.
It's all in learning,
and that too, learning and fun. And I think lastly, it's going to, how much detail do we want to put into this one?
Well, we haven't quite figured out the specific details, but we've alluded to us hosting events. So I think our event is probably going to be focused on 2v2, not to give too much away, but we're also going to have one-off events out there where we want to, interact with the community and give away prizes for the winner of said tournament. But we're looking to have our own duel in the coming future. So stay tuned for that. We'll obviously make a flyer and post it and build up hype before the actual event so that we can get good participation. But we'll also have our own version of a duel tournament.
Yeah, we're still working out the kinks as far as rules go, and is it going to be a double elimination, single elimination. So we're still working out all the finer details, but we definitely want to do things with you guys, and I think we're going to start getting on Twitch more to interact with you guys as well. So just keep a lookout for it.
Oh, we have finally exhausted everything on our outline. It was a pretty
beefy episode.
It was a beefy episode. It was comprehensive, whatever you want to call it, but that's what we've got for you guys. I know we started off this episode saying that these are our experiences with Duel. If there's something that we left out, something that you would like to hear us cover more in depth, or how Duel is going for you, please leave a comment, reach out to us. We want to hear all of the feedback.
Yeah, we love hearing comments from everywhere, whether it be Twitter or Discord, their YouTube comments. I think certain apps that you listen to our podcast on will let you comment on that. So, wherever you listen to us at, just don't be afraid to talk to us.
We're just normal guys, just like you.
Just normal people. And I think another good way to wrap this up would be is you got to always remember duel is always a learning process. I don't think you're going to ever really master duel, even on a pro level, because it's always changing. It's always something new you can add. And remember, duel is a many factor game mode. We talked about different situations for champs, different situations with weapons and the maps and things like that. So there's a lot of factors to this game mode. Don't be too discouraged if you're going to feel overwhelmed at first, because everybody does.
I always like to think of Duel as a strategic game that has many facets. It's very similar to chess if you think about it. There's multiple ways to play it, multiple ways to win, and there isn't just one correct way to do it. So find what suits your play style and focus on that. That's the best advice I can give to anyone who wants to get better at Duel or who's just starting out. So, as always, you can find us on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, all of the major podcasting platforms. We also are on YouTube, and we are starting to stream on Twitch a whole lot more. So catch us on Twitch at State of Quake. State of Quake across all of our different platforms. Catch us between the slipgates. Feel free to comment, spread the love, spread the message, etc. So yeah, with that, everyone, we'll see you in the arena.
Keep on fragging. GG's.
GG's.